So Austin Cole, Black Alliance for Peace, welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning, y'all. Good to see you, Jared. Good to hear you, Renee.
Thank you for coming. Everyone, we are this week kicking off a week of action. It is a international workings between, I think it's now like 35 orgs or something like that, that have joined forces to try and make sure that people understand what is going on in Venezuela and to, see if there's any pressure that could be put upon this greedy ass government under which we live that seems to think that they could just do whatever they want everywhere else in the world. So Austin is here to give some more details and information, so we will let Austin take over. But if you could first, Austin, introduce yourself to the good people and let them know who you are, where you at, what you're doing, how you got here, and then we can talk about the Hands Off Venezuela campaign.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And I'm glad to be here. I'm Austin Cole. I'm one of the national co-coordinators for the Black Alliance for Peace, based in Philadelphia. And I'm also one of the co-coordinators for BAP's Haiti Americas team. And so our Haiti Americas team launched with a bunch of other organizations around the region a campaign called the Zone of Peace campaign back in 2023. And so some of the work that we're doing now with, the war in Venezuela is related back to that campaign. And I am also a former high school athlete that came back from injury my senior year and walked on, Jared. So definitely, I did end my career on my terms, where I decided actually I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this academic thing instead. But I feel you were bringing me back there with your daughter. So much love and respect and to your daughter and to you.
And
no, right on. Thank you for that.
Austin doesn't even know that just put him on the list, because now we have to have this whole conversation about about your path that now I need to know. So
one day.
You should expect an email.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anytime. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jared.
No, I was just going to invite you to go on and break down the week of action and anything else you need folks to know and where we need folks to go.
So this week of action, starting today till November 23rd, so till next Sunday, was called by over, I think Renee mentioned, over 30 organizations, mostly in North America, including Black Alliance for Peace. And the goal really, as people probably know, or at least as your listeners probably know, the U.S. has been on the aggressive war path for over the last 2 months. But even going back, we're almost 11 years after Barack Obama declared that Venezuela was a threat to national security and kind of started this new phase of aggression against Venezuela, which has lasted over a decade. But right now, the U.S. has been building up militarily in the Caribbean, strongly in Puerto Rico, encircling the Venezuelan coast. As many people have seen, they've been kind of drone striking fisher people off of the coast of the Caribbean and off of the coast of the Pacific, and really gearing up to what at first many people thought might be a bluff, but now really seems like they're intent on a hot war with Venezuela to overthrow the government in Venezuela. And so really what this week of action is to really mobilize people across the country and across the world, but particularly this hemisphere, to mobilize against this war-making effort, to mobilize against kind of the ways in which the U.S. has basically decided under Trump that they are going to kind of forego all of the previous, diplomatic diplomatic niceties that, the Biden administration and previous administrations had done to try to overthrow Venezuela or other governments, and really just go straight back to this, kind of almost like Theodore Roosevelt takeover, Monroe Doctrine, takeover of the region, right? And so I think that right now for the week of action, it really is to get folks out, to say that we won't accept this, right? That the war basically in Venezuela and that the war that's being made back here at home or back here in the US in our cities here are connected. And the only way that we are going to be able to defeat this is by mass mobilization that goes into mass organization and resistance, right? So obviously mobilization, going out into the streets and, and building our forces against this war effort is not going to stop that war, right? But it is a step in building towards the type of organization that we need in order to oppose, militarization, in order to oppose this, this downward spiral into war in this hemisphere. So we have different events that are happening all throughout the country, throughout the US, throughout Canada, and then also all throughout the region. So today in Philadelphia, 2 p.m. at City Hall, we'll be out there with a bunch of different organizations. And then if you go on the Black Lions for Peace's website and you see the events, you can see events that are happening all throughout the country over the course of this week. And then if you go to the United Anti-War Coalition's webpage, UNAC, you can also see there that they have the broader call for all different organizations all throughout the country. And then us with the Zone of Peace campaign in our US NATO Out of Our Americas network, you can see there different events that are happening throughout the hemisphere, right? So we have a bunch of folks in the Dominican Republic who have a ton of different events that are happening all throughout the week in different forms of events. We have folks in Mexico, folks in Ecuador, in Puerto Rico, all throughout the region. So really the goal is to do that, to get out into the streets, to have popular education as well. And then also to coordinate that, right? So to not just have a bunch of different random things happening, but to see this all as a coordinated effort that we can come together and mobilize and organize. And yeah, as Jared's showing right now, you can see some of the events that are on that side. And if you click on the events page, then those events, all the different events that are upcoming will show up.
Thank you. Can you say a little more, because this is something that we harp on regularly, about the interconnection? Like when you say the war abroad is connected to the war here that is happening within our cities, can you just a little more about what that means, like in a real sense, for people who don't come here every Saturday to listen to us talk about how it's all connected?
Yeah, so there's a few different dimensions to it, but I'll try not to go too long. So one of the major aspects of BAP's work in our central campaign, which is called No Compromise, No Retreat, Defeat the War on African Black People in the US and abroad, is understanding programs like the 1033 program, which allows local police local police departments to actually just transfer equipment from the Pentagon, from the Department of Defense. And if you look at how those transfers have transpired over time, as the US pulled out of Iraq and Afghanistan, then the equipment that was being used there is being transferred to local police departments, right? So you see the tanks, you see the tear gas, all the other different types of equipment that were in Ferguson, that are in, that were used all throughout our cities through 2020 and 2021 and continue to be utilized, on a daily basis. Those are made for war, right? But then when the war isn't happening, they are brought back home, right? So the war profiteers, right, the defense manufacturers or defense contractors, they're going to sell their equipment somewhere, right? So there's one part of it that is really concrete about, this equipment, these war making efforts are literally coming back into our communities, right? Then there's another aspect which I think is, has been happening for a long time in terms of the militarization and in particular like counterinsurgency or counterintelligence. And I see y'all are going to be talking with Laura Shihai. So that's something that, she knows much more about than I do. But I think for our purposes in understanding this today is that the methods of counterinsurgency, the methods of counterintelligence, of destroying movements, of destroying community control, of destroying popular democracy or attempts at popular democracy in this country are tested on people abroad. And that has been happening for a long time, right? That happened during the Korean War, during the Vietnam War, and the tactics that were utilized there were brought back here to more effectively dismantle movements here in the US, right? And so the ways that those things have been developed, it is a process of war making, and war is beneficial to the imperialist or the capitalist powers. And so wherever they can make war to extract, value, to test their, devices, to test their methods. We've seen that in Palestine with the genocide in Palestine as well, and Zionist intelligence apparatus and Zionist equipment that is utilized there, and surveillance equipment is literally already being utilized in public housing in the U.S. Right? It's literally already being utilized by police forces or police departments here in the U.S. And that's been happening, right? But it's only happening at a more accelerated rate. So the way that we can't sort of convince ourselves that war is happening to some people over there and that it will not come back to us, or that it is not already happening, because it's a two-way relationship as well, right? The way that war has been visited on African people and Black people in this country, throughout enslavement, during Reconstruction and the destruction of Reconstruction and Jim Crow, many of those methods were utilized in places like South Africa, right? In places like historic Palestine, right? In Gaza. And so understanding that is really critical. But then there's also a really important moment now that is specific to the Americas and specific to Venezuela, where the US wants to destroy any alternatives to the capitalist imperialist mode of operating economic production, political understanding, right, or political arrangements and governance, as well as kind of social organization, right? And what Venezuela, what Cuba, Nicaragua, Bolivia, all of these countries represent is an alternative way of being, right? An alternative way of operating society, and they show an example that actually a different way is possible. And that is more dangerous to the US, to the entire imperialist order, than all the oil that Venezuela has, right? Yes, they want Venezuela's oil, but they also want to destroy any hope of something different for African people, for all colonized people, for working class people in this country and throughout the world, right? And so for us, understanding that war, understanding the purpose of the war on Venezuela and on this hemisphere is to really destroy those alternatives in this hemisphere, so that there is no model, there is no alternative that people here can look to and say, we can actually do something different, and we're willing to fight for something different. And to lock down this hemisphere as China has influence throughout the rest of the globe, as countries in Africa are rising up against French, neocolonialism and U.S. neocolonialism, and folks throughout, as I already mentioned in Palestine and in West Asia, that folks are rejecting Zionism and rejecting the normalization of that. The U.S. is trying to shore up the Americas as a fortress, right? As I mentioned, they're trying to return to the Monroe Doctrine, the Roosevelt Corollary, to say this entire hemisphere is ours. We completely control it, and there will be no alternative way of living right here besides domination and control. So Just to say that I think it's multifaceted, but most importantly right now, why we need to fight against this is to actually have the capacity or build towards the capacity to have self-determination, right? To believe that we can actually develop ways of being, ways of living where our communities can be in control of our destiny, because this country has never wanted that for African people, for Black people, right? Has never wanted that for working class people. And so trying to stamp that out of Venezuela is also trying to strike a blow against any hope of that for us inside the confines of this country as well.
Yeah, no, right on. Thank you for that. No, go ahead, Renee.
No, I was just gonna say I appreciate that breakdown. It is nothing short of the clarity that I would have expected you to provide. So I appreciate it. And then, is there anything else that you want to cover or share before we let you go? Because I appreciate your time, and I know I think you're also supposed to be on another call, as I'm supposed to be on right now. So.
There's always something, right? No, I'll just leave with just, again, folks, to look out for the week of action, things happening in your city. Even if something's not happening in your city, right, that's an invitation for you to take that up, right? Part of mobilizing and organizing is also building our consciousness to act and to understand that we can act and we can find other people who we can act collectively with towards this longer generational struggle. And for folks to check out the Zone of Peace campaign and U.S. NATO Out of Our Americas network, really that work and the goal of that effort is to build an America's wide consciousness, because we understand that our fates are interconnected, right? We understand that, African people who are in South America and the Caribbean and in the United States and North America, right, are part of, the broader African world, and that our and as African or Black, working class peoples, we have to be united and we have to coordinate, and we have to coordinate with other folks who are colonized, other working class people, other communities throughout this hemisphere and throughout the world. So really that U.S. NATO Out of Our Americas network is part of that effort to build that from the bottom up grassroots coordination, to build that struggle that can be a generational struggle, and to construct a real zone of peace in our Americas. So that's all I got. Appreciate y'all so much for the time. And yeah, US and NATO Out of Our Americas, and we need to make our Americas a zone of peace.